What if one ordinary day, the ground beneath you split open, the sea rose higher than mountains, or the very air you breathe turned against you? Everything you've ever known disappeared in a flash, not by chance, but by chaos. What if everything you loved vanished in a single moment? And the world watched, powerless, yet united. When nature turns merciless and mankind helpless, we're reminded how fragile life truly is. From cities swallowed by ocean waves to nations torn apart, here are 5 unforgettable calamities that changed lives forever. Story 1. On the 26th day of December, 2004, the day after Christmas, families gather to celebrate the Boxing Day, a day full of gift-giving, children's laughter, and families traveling and spending time together. Who would have thought that this special day would turn into chaos and destruction? At 7:58 a.m., a 9.1 magnitude earthquake struck the seafloor off the west coast of Aceh in northern Sumatra, Indonesia, one of the largest and deadliest that ever recorded in the 21st century. The earthquake ruptures the ocean floor, sea lifts, forming waves taller than palm trees. Nearly 100 feet of water push toward communities around the Indian Ocean. Waves struck 14 countries, and almost 230,000 people lost their lives. Indonesia and Thailand, known to have pristine beaches and crystal-clear waters, are travel spots for tourists all over the world. In one moment, this perfect paradise turns into a total nightmare. People vanish, buildings folded like houses of cards, trees and cars swept up in the oil-black rapids, like no one will be left to survive. The Boxing Day tsunami, the undersea megathrust earthquake, also known as Sumatra-Andaman earthquake, was caused by a rupture along the fault between the Burma Plate and the Indian Plate. Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand were the countries with the hardest hit, entire villages collapsing and washed away. Hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children have lost their lives. The earthquake caused a massive 100-foot tsunami in the city of Banda Aceh, the closest to the earthquake's epicenter. Entire villages vanish. Families cling to rooftops, then disappear with waves traveling 500 miles per hour across the Indian Ocean. At 8:45 a.m., the tsunami hit the coastal provinces of Thailand. Curious beachgoers, locals, and tourists wandered out and investigated the receding waves, unaware of the danger ahead. Tourists filming the retreating tide were consumed moments later. The Thailand tsunami's death toll rose nearly 5,400, including 2,000 foreign tourists. An hour later, at 9:30 a.m., on the opposite side of the Indian Ocean, near the city of Chennai, the southeastern coast of India and parts of Sri Lanka was also struck by the massive waves, pushing debris chokes water and claims more than 10,000 people, mostly women and children. One of the most devastating events is in Sri Lanka, where many are living their normal routine. Some went out fishing and unaware of what danger that lurks ahead. Trains were swallowed whole, more than 30,000 people were swept away, and hundreds of thousands were left homeless. 5,000 miles from the earthquake's epicenter, coast of East Africa, the last victims of the Boxing Day disaster perished nearly 8 hours later when swelling seas and rogue waves caught swimmers by surprise. The scale was unfathomable. Over 230,000 people lost their lives across 14 countries. The force of the waves equaled 23,000 Hiroshima bombs. Entire coastlines were redrawn. Yet amid the devastation, the world came together like never before. Rescue teams from across the globe poured into Southeast Asia. Donations flooded in, volunteers built shelters, and scientists began designing a new kind of protection. The Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning System, ensuring that never again would nations face such terror without warning. This was the most extreme tsunami event since 1960, says Jose Barrero, a tsunami researcher with the University of Southern California and director of eCoast, a marine consultancy based in New Zealand. In the aftermath of the tsunami, commemorative monuments were established in many countries. The Ban Nam Kem Tsunami Memorial Park in Phang Nga, Thailand, the Tsunami Hongganji Viharaya in Peralia, Sri Lanka, the Aceh Tsunami Museum in Banda Aceh, Indonesia, the tsunami memorials in Kanyakumari, Nagapattinam, and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, India, and the Indian Ocean Tsunami Memorial in Kings Park, Australia, serve as reminders of the loss brought about by the tsunami. From heartbreak came unity. The tsunami changed not just landscapes, but how the world responds to disaster. It reminded us that nature's fury may be unstoppable, but compassion is limitless. Story 2. It was September 30th, 2025, a normal Tuesday night in Cebu City, Philippines. The streets were busy, employees making their way to their homes. Some were with their kids watching television, and some were peacefully sleeping. Then, at 9:59 p.m., the ground began to shake. Windows shattered, power lines snapped, and the heart of the Visayas trembled under the power of a magnitude 6.7 earthquake. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, (PHIVOLCS), initially measured the quake at magnitude 6.7 before upgrading it to 6.9. For 30 seconds, the city held its breath, but when the shaking stopped, silence gave way to sirens, roads split open, buildings cracked, and the earth beneath some neighborhoods liquefied, turning solid ground into mud that swallowed vehicles whole. Aftershocks followed for hours, and panic turned to exhaustion. Families fled to open spaces, clutching loved ones, praying for safety. In nearby towns, reports of sinkholes and landslides spread through social media like wildfire. The earthquake's epicenter was traced to Bogo City, Cebu. Yet, even amid fear and confusion, hope refused to die. Within hours, rescue teams, firefighters, and volunteers flooded the streets. Neighbors became first responders, pulling strangers from debris. Churches opened their doors to the displaced. Young people distributed food and water through narrow, damaged roads. As power returned to some areas, videos of compassion began circulating online, acts of kindness shining through the dust and rubble. The aftermath was more visible on Wednesday morning. Houses and old churches were severely damaged. The strong earthquake claimed 72 lives. Hundreds of people were injured, and thousands were left homeless. On October 8, 2025, residents of Bogo City, Cebu, who were deeply affected by the earthquake, gathered in a mass grave at the new Corazon Cemetery to peacefully lay to rest the ones they loved. The world watched and responded. The hashtag #PrayForCebu trended globally as countries sent aid, prayers, and support. Engineers and scientists offered assistance to assess damages and improve local preparedness. Doshin Bayani Han, 525. A first-ever activity between Philippines and Japan was conducted under the new Reciprocal Access Agreement, a joint training exercise in Mactan, Cebu. The activity aims to focus on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief from October 7th to 11th. And while the aftershocks continued and sinkholes were discovered from time to time, something stronger resonated beneath the surface: the resilience of the Filipino spirit. Once again, in the face of catastrophe, the Philippines showed that no tremor can shake the strength of unity. Story 3. In the quiet hours before dawn on April 26, 1986, the city of Pripyat in northern Ukraine slept peacefully. At 1:23 a.m., a safety test was underway inside reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. But in a flash, a series of critical errors led to an explosion that tore through the reactor's core. The force blew the roof off the facility, releasing radioactive material thousands of times more potent than the Hiroshima bomb. Firefighters rushed to the scene, unaware of the invisible danger cloaking them. Flames burned blue and green as radiation filled the air. The next morning, Pripyat's residents woke to a strange metallic taste, a glowing sky, and a future that would never return. On April 27, 1986, buses began evacuating 50,000 inhabitants of Pripyat, told they would be gone in only a few days. They never came back. A cover-up was attempted, keeping the disaster a secret for as long as it could, but the radiation cloud betrayed them. On April 28th, Swedish monitoring stations reported abnormally high levels of wind-transported radioactivity. Alarms sounded across Europe as readings spiked thousands of miles away. Over the next months, thousands were evacuated and entire regions became ghost towns. Some sources state that 2 people lost their lives in the initial explosions. Dozens of people contracted serious radiation sickness that later ended their lives. Between 50 and 185 million curies of radionuclides escaped into the atmosphere. This radioactivity was spread by the wind over Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine, and soon reached as far west as France and Italy. Millions of acres of forest and farmland were contaminated, and although many thousands of people were evacuated, hundreds of thousands more remained in contaminated areas. On May 4, 1986, radioactive debris in Chernobyl Unit 4 was buried at 800 temporary sites, and the highly reactive core was enclosed in a concrete and steel sarcophagus. Major works on the shelter were carried out in 1998 and 1999. About 200 tons of highly radioactive material remains deep within and still poses environmental hazards. Due to the hazard and radiation exposure, a former liquidator, Yaroslav Melnik, says that they worked in 3 shifts, but only for 5 to 7 minutes at a time because of the danger. And every time after the shift is finished, they would throw their clothes in the garbage. In 1995, Ukraine's government declared that 125,000 people lost their lives from the effects of Chernobyl radiation. Health effects from the Chernobyl disaster remains unclear. No official government studies were conducted following the explosion to assess its effects on workers, the liquidators, and nearby population. A 770-mile-wide Chernobyl exclusion zone around the explosion site is considered unsafe for human habitation and cannot be used for any agricultural purposes due to contaminated plants and soil. However, in December 2017, a Ukrainian-German company announced the construction of a massive solar power plant in the abandoned territory. In 2017, the new safe confinement (NSC) structure was completed, covering both Unit 4 and the 1986 temporary structure. It's been 39 years since the Chernobyl accident. Humans are still not allowed to inhabit the area. According to the Ukrainian authorities, it will never be safe for people to live in the Chernobyl exclusion zone for more than 24,000 years. Decades after the explosion, a strange transformation took place. What was once a forbidden zone became a place of reflection. In 2011, declared as a tourist attraction, thousands of tourists now visit Chernobyl every year, not out of thrill, but out of reverence. They walk through the silent ruins of Pripyat, guided by experts in radiation safety, witnessing a haunting time capsule frozen in 1986. The once toxic wasteland is turned into a living museum, reminding the world of both the dangers of human error and the enduring resilience of nature and humanity itself. Story 4. In August 2005, a tropical depression formed over the Bahamas, one storm among many, but within days, it strengthened into a monster, Hurricane Katrina, known to be the costliest natural disaster in U.S. history, caused more than $100 billion in property damage. The devastating aftermath of Hurricane Katrina exposed a series of problems, including federal government response controversies, difficulties in search and rescue efforts, and lack of preparedness for the storm. How does a tropical depression reach a Category 5 strength? On August 23, 2005, with the merger of a tropical wave, Katrina was formed after briefly strengthening to a tropical storm over South Florida and southeastern Miami, reaching winds at 80 miles per hour, capable of uprooting trees. It weakened its wind speed and strength without warm ocean water and became a tropical storm. Katrina then entered the Gulf of Mexico on August 26th and rapidly intensified to a Category 5 hurricane by early morning of August 29th, 2005, slamming into the Gulf Coast of the United States. Winds roared at over 175 miles per hour. Levees broke. The city of New Orleans, rich in history, music, and culture, was submerged beneath its own waters. 80% of the city was underwater. Tens of thousands were stranded on rooftops, waving for help under the blazing sun. About 100,000 to 150,000 people remained in the city of New Orleans, despite mandatory evacuation orders. The Superdome was declared and served to be the city's shelter of last resort for people who could not leave the city, issued by New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin, city's mayor that time. Over 25,000 people made their way to Superdome, the city's largest arena, where conditions soon turns into chaos. Still, hundreds of thousands are trapped in the city, particularly the elderly and people who lacked access to transportation. By the time Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans, it had been raining heavily for hours. A storm surge as high as 9 meters in some places were reported, and it destroyed the city's unstable levees and drainage canals. By 9 a.m. of the same day, low-lying places were now underwater, and people had to go to their attics and rooftops for safety. The following day, Katrina weakened to a tropical storm, causing relief efforts to slow down. Hospitals ran out of supplies, families were separated, and the nation watched in disbelief. The hurricane's toll was devastating. Over 1,800 people lost their lives and entire communities were erased. But Katrina revealed more than just physical weakness. It exposed deep social and racial divides and the failures of systems meant to protect. Katrina's storm surge caused 53 levee breaches that were assumed to protect Metro New Orleans and the 40 Arpent Canal levee. Failure of these levees occurred in massive flash floods in surrounding communities, especially St. Bernard Parish. The following day, Katrina weakened to a tropical storm. Floodwaters still caused relief efforts to slow down. Yet amid the chaos, humanity rose again. Volunteers from every state and every corner of the world rushed to help. Strangers offered homes, churches became shelters, and musicians performed to raise relief funds. International aid poured in from countries. The rebuilding was slow, painful, and imperfect, but it sparked change. Stronger levees, better disaster response plans, and a renewed focus on equality and crisis management. In April 2006, due to the impact of loss and destruction made by Hurricane Katrina, the World Meteorological Organization retired the name Katrina. Katrina was a storm that destroyed, but it also revealed the heart of a people who refused to drown in despair. The waters eventually vanished, but the lessons stayed forever. Story 5. It was an ordinary summer evening in Beirut, Lebanon, August 4, 2020. The sun was setting over the Mediterranean as people finished work, unaware that within minutes the city's heart would explode. At 6:07 p.m., a fire broke out in Warehouse 12 at the port of Beirut, a nearby warehouse storing 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate that was confiscated in 2014 from the cargo ship MV Rosis and had been improperly stored for over 6 years, was ignited. Alongside the stored chemicals was also a stored stash of fireworks. And then, moments later, an explosion unlike anything seen in peacetime. A white cloud mushroomed into the sky, followed by a shock wave that shattered windows miles away. The blast, as high as buildings near the port, caused extensive damage all over the city of Beirut, a home to 2 million people. 35 seconds later, a second explosion rocked central Beirut, creating a large red-orange cloud and a white condensation cloud ringing the port afterwards. The smoke that causes the red-orange cloud was caused by nitrogen dioxide, a byproduct of ammonium nitrate decomposition. In an instant, Beirut turned to chaos. Streets filled with smoke and glass. Hospitals overflowed. The city's port, its economic lifeline, was reduced to a crater. More than 200 people lost their lives, 7,000 injured, and 300,000 left homeless. The explosion's force was felt as far as Cyprus, more than 200 kilometers away, damaging St. George Hospital, one of the city's largest medical facilities, Sursak Museum, Bustros Palace, the Armenian Catholicosate in Antelias are some of the major facilities that were severely damaged and destroyed by the blast. Overturned cars, stripped steel-framed buildings, a destroyed section of the port shoreline, and damaged home as far as 10 kilometers away from the blast site were the scenes left by the explosion. The Lebanese government declared a 2-week state of emergency. Protests, which had been ongoing since 2019, grew more intense, and on August 10, 2020, led to the resignation of Prime Minister Hassa Diab and his cabinet members. But even as the city bled, its people refused to give in. Ordinary citizens became rescuers, clearing rubble with bare hands. Volunteers organized food drives. Doctors treated the wounded in parking lots, and people across the world sent supplies and funds. Another pain is that during the explosion is the same time that the world is battling COVID-19 pandemic. It's like pouring salt in the wound. Governments, humanitarian groups, and everyday individuals came together in an outpouring of empathy. Beirut, broken yet unbowed, became a symbol of resilience in the face of political and economic despair. The Lebanese Red Cross said every available ambulance from North Lebanon, Bekaa, and South Lebanon was being dispatched to Beirut to help patients. Lebanese President Michel Aoun said the government would make up to £100 billion, or $66 million in aid available to support recovery operations. A temporary hospital was established in the city by the Iranian Red Crescent Society. On 9th August, a multinational summit hosted by France raised €253 million in aid. The money pledged was not to be given to the Lebanese government, but rather to the people of Lebanon through the United Nations, other international organizations, and non-governmental organizations. On the 3rd day of August 2025, Lebanon's culture minister Ghassan Salameh declared the Beirut port silos will be added to the general inventory of historic monuments. The blast was one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in human history, but its aftermath showed something far more powerful than destruction: the strength of unity. In the ruins of Beirut, the world saw not only tragedy, but the light of humanity shining through dust and tears. Humans stood together, proof that empathy rebuilds faster than any crane.